Hello and welcome to another episode of Moose's Gear Goo Review. I'm Moose, and today we're out in the woods because today I'm gonna try to make my I don't even know how to describe it. My video about Mors Kochanski. Now this is just a quick talking piece and about me kind of describing what I got from Mors Kochanski. Now Mors Kochanski, if you don't know who he is, after you hear this name, you should definitely Google him and research him, especially if you're into bushcraft or outdoor wilderness survival skills, especially in northern boreal forests. But basically, Mors is a Canadian wilderness survival bushcraft instructor that passed away just a couple months ago. And everything I'm going to talk about, I'll try to leave links in the description below. Because, with my interest and love of the outdoors, it was definitely influenced heavily, at least within the last 10 years, by Mors Kochanski. So like I said, I came across Mors Kochanski when I first got into bushcraft, and it was right as I was getting kind of beyond car camping and getting into bushcraft, because that was kind of the popular thing at the time. But that being said, his name came up a lot in the videos I researched, and specifically for the book Bushcraft, which is considered kind of the bushcraft Bible for anyone who's into bushcraft. And I'll put a picture up here of the book. But basically, that book covered everything you needed to know about bushcraft, really, and it was definitely the stepping stone for many people who have gotten into bushcraft. So if you find a copy of that book, please pick it up. In the book, Mors Kochanski, I guess, has lived in the Canadian Alberta specifically, for decades. And from that, his experience living in the bush and living in the forest and working with the forest, he learned different techniques, and he kind of wrote the rules for most of them. He taught you how to use an axe, a saw, and a bushcraft knife. With that, gave every little skill and knowledge that he could share into how to use that in the way of bushcraft. Now, bushcraft itself is basically taking minimal tools, specifically a saw, an axe, and a knife, and crafting everything you need to live comfortably in the wilderness, basically. So if you needed a bench, you could make a bench out of the natural materials there using these minimal tools. As well as like building a pot holder and fishing hooks and shelters, and it really was interesting. So once I found the name, I started researching videos, and luckily he was alive enough to participate in videos on YouTube. I'm gonna butcher the name of the company, but I'll put it down below here. Karamut, I believe, and there's a couple of things that I got from that. So besides the bushcraft tool element, he showed me that I didn't have to go all out in kind of a military tactical form of survival for wilderness survival. A lot of times bushcrafters, we have this idea of what a traditional bushcraft thing is, and a lot of times it's related to or the mountain men and the voyageurs and what they kind of carried. This LT Wright bushcraft knife is a beautiful sheath and handmade in the U.S. And it's not terribly big, but even then, Mors Kochanski, after studying him, I realized that you don't even need to spend a lot of money to be a bushcrafter. So a simple, cheap Mora that is small and compact was basically the tool that I always saw him using in a lot of his videos. Now, don't get me wrong, he had other well-made knives, but the first old school videos that I could dig up of him, he was using an inexpensive Mora knife. And he's known as one of the best wilderness experts to ever live. And so that kind of helped me just realize, like, I don't need the biggest, baddest, most expensive knife out there, and that you can survive with just the most basic of tools. And he's quoted, and here's one of his other books. which kind of overlaps with the bushcraft thing. But he really was a master. And so from bushcraft, learning the different survival techniques that he had, or at least what he thought was necessary for survival in northern climates, he could learn a lot. And so they said that he was coined with kind of using and popularizing the term bushcraft. But he also said, and this is his famous quote, "The more you know, the less you carry." The more you know, the less you carry. And so for a while when I first got into survival, I was watching, some of these other YouTuber channels, and they're great channels, but a lot of times they were tactically focused. So you had to have a gun, you had to have, a tourniquet and all this tactical stuff for wilderness survival. And not that it doesn't need or have its place at some point and in certain situations, but I realized in wilderness survival, as a camper or a backpacker, you really don't need that. And that is kind of the message I got from him. And he had decades of experience, so you don't need a big survival knife, and you don't need any specifically large or tactical tool. You just need the basics. And then to his idea of survival, as far as like staying from being hungry, he recommended drinking a lot of water the first thing you do right away when you wake up in the morning. It'll curb your appetite, and it'll help keep your system running at peak condition for what calories you do have. And those are the types of things that I didn't necessarily pick up in other survival books that I've read. Different fire techniques, how to use a knife specifically, a small knife. One of the coolest things that I learned from watching one of his videos, and I'll link that video below if I can find it again, was how to make like a cot out of just sticks without really any cordage. So there's this wealth of knowledge that he had that really kind of impressed me and kind of motivated me to keep trying and learning bushcraft, or at least add those skills into my backpacking and camping. He wasn't a desert survivalist. He wasn't, a tropical, didn't know anything. But if you are in the northern climate, northern boreal forests, the Canadian Shield, Scandinavian forests, he was the king. And I highly recommend you check him out. It's sad that he's passed away, but like I said, luckily he was able to bestow his knowledge into his books and into a couple videos. So please check out the links below. Look up Mors Kochanski. I'll include every video that I feel really represents him down below. Too, if you're interested in these knives, I'll leave links to these knives. And also, besides him, there's another guy, Ray Mears, and maybe I'll do a video on Ray Mears. But between the two, I was able to figure out kind of what's my ideal bushcraft knife, and I think I finally found it. Thank you guys so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And like I said, check out Mors Kochanski. Thank you. Be safe. Wash your hands. And I will see you outside.